My name is Madison. I was 26 when my father finally said the quiet part out loud, like a judge reading a sentence he'd been rehearsing for years. He didn't say it gently. He didn't say it with shame. He snarled it into my ear the night he skipped my law school graduation, the night my phone lit up with panic from home, the night my success became an inconvenience to his emergency. And emergency wasn't a hospital, a funeral, or anything that sounded human. It was money. Fast, desperate money, dumped into Colton's collapsing startup like throwing gasoline at a dying fire and calling it warmth. I was still wearing my graduation makeup when he called. My diploma folder sat on my table like proof I hadn't imagined the last 3 years of sacrifice. In the background, I heard voices arguing. Investors, documents, timelines, somebody saying, "Keep her name off it." Then my father cut through everything with pure disgust, like my achievement was a stain on his plan. "Your success means nothing," he snapped. "Colton's the only son who matters." I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I went so still I could hear my own breathing. And that's when I understood the real danger. If they could erase me on the biggest day of my life, they could also use me to save themselves. My name, my credibility, my future. Have you ever had a moment where you realized your family didn't ignore you by accident? They ignored you because you were inconvenient? If you've ever been treated like your wins don't count in your own home, tap like and subscribe, because what I did next didn't just expose their golden boy, it turned him into ash in front of everyone. Graduation morning didn't feel like celebration. It felt like walking into court with no witnesses on my side. I'd rehearsed this day in my head for years. Late nights, coffee breath, case briefs scattered across my bed, mock trial notes highlighting the parts where I needed to sound stronger than I felt. I told myself that once I crossed that stage, my family would finally see me as more than background noise. Not because I needed their approval to exist, but because I needed one clean moment where love showed up on time. I checked my phone 3 times before I left my apartment. Not because I needed directions, not because I forgot my ticket, because some part of me was still expecting a text that said, "We're here." Something simple, something normal. But there was nothing. Not even a lazy proud of you. Just silence heavy enough to bruise. When I walked into the auditorium, the warmth in the room didn't comfort me. It mocked me. Families were everywhere. Parents stood on chairs to get a better photo. Siblings waved signs with glitter letters. Couples held hands like this was a shared victory. I kept scanning the seats anyway, like my eyes could summon people who had already decided I wasn't the priority. A friend from my cohort bumped my shoulder and whispered, "Your parents get good seats?" Her smile was bright and harmless. She didn't know she had pressed a bruise. I swallowed hard and forced a laugh. "They'll be here," I said, because hope is sometimes just denial dressed in confidence. But as the ceremony started, I watched rows fill up, and the 2 seats I'd saved in my mind stayed empty. I tried to focus on the speeches. The dean talked about justice, integrity, carrying the law like a responsibility. The words floated above me while my chest tightened below them, because integrity was exactly what my family lacked, and I didn't know it would become my weapon until later. Then the names began. One by one, people stood, hugged family members, walked across the stage, and returned to applause that sounded like love. When my name was called, Madison, I stood up with my back straight, like posture could hide pain. I smiled the way you smile when you refuse to hand your heartbreak to strangers. I walked across the stage and accepted my diploma folder, and the applause from classmates and faculty carried me forward. But there was a hole where my family should have been, an absence so clean it felt deliberate. Outside afterward, the celebration hit me like wind. Cameras flashed. Someone handed me flowers. I said thank you on autopilot, because the human brain will perform happiness even when it's bleeding. My professor hugged me and said, "You're going to be a great attorney." I nodded. I believed him. And I hated that my family's absence still mattered, even though I'd earned this without them. Then my phone buzzed. My first message from home all day. My stomach jumped because I wanted it to be a late congratulations, a guilt-soaked apology. Anything that sounded like, "We know we failed you, but we're proud." It wasn't. It was a demand wearing the costume of family. "Call me, right now. We need you. And don't post anything. Don't tag the school. Don't mention us." Underneath it was a second line, colder than the first. "They keep asking if you're involved." My smile froze. In my mind, something rearranged itself like furniture being shoved into place. It wasn't grief anymore, it was clarity. I could almost see an evidence board in my head, photos pinned, strings connecting, empty seats, urgent call, don't post, don't tag, don't mention, questions about involvement. I stared at my diploma folder like it was a shield, like it could block what I was starting to understand. Because now I saw the real reason they didn't come. If something was going wrong, my graduation wasn't just unimportant. It was dangerous. A spotlight, a timeline, a record. Proof that I existed separately from their mess, and they didn't want my success near it. A friend leaned in, cheerful, still unaware. "We're doing drinks tonight. You coming?" I nodded automatically. "Maybe," I said, but my mind wasn't in that parking lot anymore. My mind was at home, in whatever chaos was happening, with my name hovering over it like a signature someone else was trying to forge. Have you ever had to smile on one of the biggest days of your life just to hide the fact that the people who should love you most didn't show up? And if you've been there, tell me in the comments. Would you still protect them after that? Or would something inside you snap the way mine did? That night, I didn't post the graduation photo I'd imagined for years. I didn't tag my school. I didn't write a caption about pride. I sat on my couch, still in my dress, and reread that text until my anger stopped being heat and turned into something sharper. Strategy. Because one thing law school taught me, one thing I was good at, was recognizing patterns and building cases. And my family had a pattern. Whenever Colton needed something, everyone else became collateral. I didn't say his name out loud yet. I didn't have to. In our house, the only son wasn't just a label. It was a religion. The call came after midnight, not with apology, but with urgency. Like I was a fire extinguisher, they kept on the wall, only valued when the smoke got too thick. I let it ring twice, not to punish them, but to prove to myself I still had choices. Then I answered. My father didn't start with my graduation. He didn't say, "How was it?" He didn't say my name like it mattered. He went straight to control, voice tight and rushed. "We're handling something," he said, "and you need to stay quiet." Do you understand me? Stay quiet. That was always his first instinct. Silence wasn't just a request in our family, it was the price of belonging. Quiet about what? I asked. I kept my tone level, the way you do when you're dealing with someone who mistakes emotion for weakness. A pause. Then he said, "People are asking questions. There are documents. There's confusion. We just need to get through this week." Confusion. Another family favorite word. Confusion meant they wanted me to doubt my instincts. Confusion meant they wanted time to rearrange the story. I took a slow breath. "You had a choice," I said. "You chose to miss my graduation." His exhale sharpened. "Don't do this right now." There it was. The brick in the wall. My feelings were always this. Always poorly timed. Always inconvenient. The day I needed him most, he vanished. The night he needed me, he demanded obedience. "I'm not doing anything," I said, calm and precise. "I'm naming what happened." He tried to bulldoze past me. "We supported you. We paid for—" "Stop," I cut in. My voice was steady, but it wasn't soft anymore. "If you supported me, you would have been there. If you respected me, you wouldn't be calling like I'm part of your cleanup crew." Another pause. Heavier now. In the background, I heard muffled arguing, a slammed drawer, someone swearing under their breath. Then my father's voice dropped, like he was moving from persuasion to threat. You need to understand how serious this is. I understand it's serious, I said. Because you didn't come to my graduation, and now you're terrified I'll ruin something. That tells me everything. His patience snapped. We're trying to protect the family, he hissed. Protect. That word had covered every betrayal in our house. Protect the family. By hiding the truth. Protect the family. By sacrificing the easy child. Protect the family. By feeding Colton's appetite and calling it love. I let the word hang in the air, then said, You mean protect the legacy? He didn't deny it, because that's what it always was. Legacy. Not love. A legacy he wanted to stamp with the son's name like a brand on cattle. My father wasn't cruel in the obvious way. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He was worse. He believed he was right. He believed bloodlines mattered more than fairness. He believed that a son carried the family name like a trophy, and daughters carried the burden like furniture. Madison, he said, voice lower, if you love this family, you will stay out of this. My stomach turned, not with doubt, but with recognition. That wasn't love. That was leverage. It was the same tactic he'd used my whole life. Prove your loyalty, even when we don't deserve it. What exactly are you asking me to do? I asked. He hesitated, and that hesitation told me the truth was ugly. Then he said, If anyone contacts you, you don't know anything. You weren't involved. You didn't advise. You didn't see documents. You keep your head down until this blows over. I stared at the wall of my apartment, and for a second I pictured my own future collapsing. My career, my reputation, my credibility, because my father wanted me to be silent while he and Colton played games with other people's money. And that's when something in me hardened, not into cruelty, into boundaries. Put everything in writing, I said. Email me what you're asking. If it's legitimate, you won't be afraid of a paper trail. His silence stretched, thick with fear. Then he snapped, You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being careful. You raised me in a house where truth was punished, so you don't get to act surprised that I learned to document everything. In the background, someone shouted, Colton's voice, frantic, muffled. Just get her to cooperate. My father's tone sharpened again, and now the mask slipped completely. Listen to me, he said. If you don't do what I'm telling you, you are not my daughter. There it was. The line he'd been saving for years. The same energy as, Your success means nothing. It wasn't about love. It was about obedience. I felt a strange calm settle over me, like the moment before a verdict. Then I guess I'm not, I said quietly, because I'm not going to destroy my life to protect your lies. He cursed. You think you're better than us because you got a diploma? I think I'm safer than you, I said, and I'm not giving you access to my safety anymore. I hung up before he could respond, because I refused to let him have the last word for once. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From the sensation of finally stepping out of the role they assigned me. When someone demands loyalty but refuses accountability, what is that? Family. Or control. And if you've ever been forced to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your soul, tell me, which one did you pick? By morning, whispers turned into signals. A vague post? A blurry photo? A comment thread with the word investigation floating like smoke. I didn't need all the details to know one thing. People don't beg for silence when everything is clean. I tried to focus on my next steps. Job interviews, onboarding paperwork, the normal beginning of a legal career. But my phone became a trigger. Every notification felt like a threat. Every unknown number felt like a witness calling me to testify. Then it hit. An email from the firm's compliance department, polite, professional, and quietly deadly. We're conducting standard conflict checks, it said. Do you have any personal connection to... And then the startup's name appeared on my screen like a stain. My chest tightened. Not because I was guilty, but because I knew my family's logic. If they could use my accomplishments to impress neighbors, they could use my credentials to calm investors. They could frame me as legal counsel in a pitch deck without permission. They could imply I was involved because it sounded credible. They could treat my hard-earned reputation like a coat they borrowed in a storm, never caring if it came back torn. I opened my laptop and began building my own case file. First public records, corporate filings, last-minute amendments, registered addresses. Then I went deeper. Cached pages, screenshots reposted by angry ex-employees, forum threads where people leaked partial documents when they felt betrayed. The internet doesn't forget. The internet doesn't forgive. And there it was. My name in clean, confident font under a section titled Legal and Risk. Not my signature, not my consent, just my identity used as credibility. I stared at it until my anger stopped being emotional and became operational. In my mind, the metaphor shifted. No longer a courtroom fantasy, but a real docket with consequences. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to move like a lawyer. I drafted a response to compliance first. Short, factual, unemotional. I have no role, no representation, and no involvement with this company. Any reference to me is unauthorized. I attached the screenshot as evidence and asked for confirmation that my file reflected that truth. Then I drafted a second message to the startup's contact email, more formal. My identity has been used without authorization. Remove all references immediately. Confirm in writing. Preserve all records. Not revenge, protection. There's a difference, and I needed to stay on the right side of it. And then I did the cleanest, quietest thing that would trigger consequences without turning me into their villain. I used the official reporting channel, public hotline, public form, and I reported one fact only. My identity was used without permission. No wild accusations beyond what I could prove. Just a breadcrumb placed exactly where investigators would notice it. That's the part people don't understand about truth as a weapon. You don't have to swing it like a bat. You just have to put it in the right hands and let gravity do the rest. My father called again that afternoon. I watched it ring. I imagined him pacing, face tight, trying to keep the story intact. I imagined my mother wringing her hands, begging him to handle it. I imagined Colton, always charming when things went well, panicking the moment the world demanded receipts. I answered on the last ring. "Check your email," I said. "What did you do?" my father demanded. "I documented reality," I replied. "If reality hurts you, it's because lies were holding you up." He swore, then said, "You have no idea what you're doing." I almost laughed because the irony was too sharp. "I graduated law school," I said. "So yes, I do." After I hung up, I sat on my couch and stared at the screenshot again. My name, my identity, my future used as a shield for their mess, and I felt something deeper than anger. Betrayal so intimate it tasted like metal. Because strangers stealing from you is one kind of violation, family doing it is another. Have you ever discovered someone used your name, your reputation, or your kindness like a tool, then acted shocked when you finally pulled it back? If you've ever been exploited by people who claim they love you, tell me, what was the moment you realized it wasn't love? That's when I decided to go home. Not impulsively, not emotionally, strategically. Because emails can be ignored and calls can be twisted into "she misunderstood." But eye contact, confrontation, a face-to-face moment where they can't hide behind the phone, that changes the math. I wanted to see them when they realized I wasn't bluffing. I wanted them to understand that my boundaries weren't negotiable. And I wanted to make one thing clear. If they tried to rewrite the story, I would have the receipts to burn their script down. I booked a ticket that night. I packed lightly. I didn't bring my graduation gown. I brought documents, printouts, screenshots, proof, because I wasn't walking into my childhood home as their daughter anymore. I was walking in as the one person in the family who finally refused to lie. The house looked the same from the outside. Quiet street, trimmed bushes, the kind of place where neighbors wave and assume everything inside is stable. It was a set, a stage. And for most of my life, I'd been cast as the supportive background character. Inside, the air felt metallic, like fear had been rubbed into the walls. My mother opened the door first, and her smile was too fast, too forced, the way people smile when they're trying to manage a narrative. "Honey," she said, reaching for my hands as if touch could erase history. "We're so glad you're here." I stepped back so she couldn't pull me into the old role. "Where is he?" I asked. Her eyes flicked toward the living room, and that's when my father appeared. His jaw was clenched, eyes bloodshot, holding a folder like it was a weapon. Behind him, finally, the star of the family's religion, Colton. He was pacing, sweating, talking too fast into his phone, all confidence drained out of him like a punctured tire. When he saw me, he froze. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Congratulations," I said, and my father flinched like I'd slapped him. "You missed my graduation, and now my identity is on your documents." My father's nostrils flared. "Lower your voice." "No," I said simply. "I spent 26 years lowering my voice so you could keep pretending you were a good father." Colton took one step toward me, switching into charm like it was a suit he could still wear. "Mads." "Don't!" I cut him off, clean and sharp. "Don't use a nickname like we're close. And don't lie to my face when the proof is sitting in my inbox." I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshot. My name under legal and risk. My mother's face drained so fast she looked ill. Colton's gaze darted away. My father's anger rose, because anger was his favorite cover for fear. "We were protecting you," my mother blurted, voice trembling. "By using me?" I asked. "That isn't protection. That's theft." Colton swallowed hard. "I needed credibility," he admitted. "Investors were spooked. They wanted someone serious." The honesty surprised me, not because it softened me, but because it confirmed what I already knew. "So you borrowed my seriousness," I said. "My reputation, my future, without asking. Like I'm just a resource you can drain." My father stepped forward, folder tight in his hands. "You think your little diploma makes you better than us?" I looked at the folder, and a part of me recognized it immediately. Mortgage papers, loan documents, the house as collateral. Their last desperate bet. "I don't think I'm better," I said. "I think I'm done being the sacrifice you toss into the fire whenever Colton wants warmth." Colton's mask cracked. He moved fast, panic spilling out. And then, right in front of my parents, he did something I didn't expect. He dropped to his knees. "Madison, please," he said, voice breaking. "Just talk to them. Tell them you were involved. Say you advised us. Just enough to calm them down. Once this passes, we'll fix it. I swear." My mother gasped like she wanted to pretend she hadn't heard it. My father's face tightened, but he didn't say, "No." He didn't say, "That's wrong." He watched, calculating, because the truth was this. My father didn't care how the legacy survived. He only cared that it did. And suddenly, I understood the deeper motive behind my father's favoritism. It wasn't just sexism. It was insecurity. He built his identity around having a successor, a son who could carry the family name like a flag. Colton was his proof that he mattered. Colton was the mirror he used to admire himself. I was a backup plan, the quiet child, the one who would be fine. "You're asking me to commit fraud," I said, voice steady. Colton flinched. "No, just help the story sound better." "That's fraud," I repeated. "That's perjury if it comes to testimony. That's my license, my life." My father finally spoke, and his voice was low, dangerous. "You're going to destroy your brother over paperwork?" I stared at him. "You're going to destroy your daughter over your son's ego?" My mother started crying. "Please, Madison, we're family." I didn't move. I didn't soften. "Family doesn't use you like a shield," I said. "Family doesn't vanish on your biggest day, then show up only when they need you to lie." Colton's eyes turned sharp. "You always hated me," he snapped, the charm gone. I shook my head slowly. "No. I hated the way you were allowed to become someone who thinks the world owes him rescue." My father slammed the folder onto the table. "Enough!" he barked. "You are not going to ruin this. Do you hear me?" I did hear him. I heard the same control, the same entitlement, the same belief that my role was obedience. And I realized I'd been waiting my whole life for him to say one honest sentence. Something that would finally match the feeling I'd carried. Something that would set me free. And then he said it. Loud, ugly, meant to cut me into submission. "Your success means nothing. Colton's the only son who matters." The room went dead. Even Colton stopped breathing for a second. My mother made a sound like she'd been punched. And the strangest thing happened inside me. I didn't break. I didn't crumble. I felt relief. Because when someone finally says the truth out loud, you stop wasting energy hoping they'll become someone else. I looked at my father and nodded once. "Thank you," I said. He blinked, confused. "I needed you to say it clearly," I continued. "So when you rewrite the story later and pretend you did your best, I'll remember this exact moment." I turned my phone slightly so they could see the timestamp on the screenshot. "And when you try to blame me for what happens next, I'll remember you chose it." Colton surged up from his knees, furious now. "You're going to let them ruin me?" I tilted my head. "No. You ruined you. I'm just refusing to be your fire extinguisher." My father stepped closer, towering like he used to when I was a kid, when intimidation worked. "If you walk out that door, don't come back." I nodded, calm. "I already left. You just didn't notice." Then I set the boundary that would detonate their world. "Take my identity off everything," I said. "Confirm it in writing. And if investigators contact me, I will tell them the truth. Every detail, every request, every threat. That's not revenge. That's reality." My mother sobbed. "You're breaking our family." I looked her in the eye. "No," I said softly. "I'm just refusing to be the glue that holds your lies together." And I walked out, leaving my father with his folder of desperate paperwork, my mother with her collapsing excuses, and Colton with the first consequence he couldn't charm away. If you were in my position, what would you have said right after that line, "Colton's the only son who matters"? Would you have exploded, or would you have stayed calm and let the truth do the damage? Tell me what you would have done. The downfall wasn't instant. It was worse than instant. Instant would have been merciful. This was slow, public, and irreversible, like watching a statue crack from the inside while the crowd starts filming. 2 days after I left, I received a formal request for records. My hands didn't shake this time. I followed procedure. I kept copies. I responded through the proper channel. I did everything the way a responsible attorney would, because I refused to let my family's mess smear my future. Colton called me 6 times in one night. I didn't answer. Then my mother left voice notes that sounded like prayer and blame tangled together. "Please, baby, just tell them you helped. Just a little. We're family." He didn't mean it. Your father was stressed. But stress doesn't make you commit fraud. Stress doesn't make you erase your daughter's graduation. Stress doesn't make you threaten disowning someone to force their silence. Those are choices. My offer letter from the firm arrived the same week the startup's name hit mainstream news. Friends texted me links with wide-eyed messages. Comment sections were brutal. People love a visionary until the shine turns out to be oil. Colton posted a statement online, vague language about miscommunications and bad actors. He didn't say fraud. He didn't say wrongdoing. He didn't say sorry. He tried to shape the narrative the way he always had, by sounding confident enough that people doubted their own instincts. Then a leak dropped. Screenshots, investor chats, spreadsheets too organized to be innocent. And there, again, my identity, used as credibility in the margins, like a shield. That was the moment I stopped playing defense and delivered the cleanest blow possible. I released a formal statement through the appropriate channel, short and factual. I had never represented them. My identity was used without consent. I demanded removal. I would cooperate fully. No insults, no drama, just truth sharpened into a blade. The effect was immediate. Investors fled like the building was on fire. Partners scrubbed photos, deleted posts, pretended they'd never stood next to Colton at all. The same people who once called him genius suddenly didn't know his name. The golden boy became radioactive. Then the legal consequences landed like bricks. Charges weren't just threatened, they were filed. Not a slap on the wrist. Real counts. Real court dates. Real headlines that followed you forever. Colton's face, once polished for pitch meetings, was suddenly the face under words like fraud and misrepresentation. He didn't just lose money, he lost trust, which is the one currency you can't print more of. My father's side venture, tied to Colton's startup funded by the same promises, collapsed right after. Banks don't care about pride, they care about risk. And risk had our last name on it now. Accounts froze. Lines of credit vanished. The house my father used like a symbol of control, became collateral that swallowed them whole. He called me late one night, and his voice wasn't angry anymore. It was hollow. "We might lose the house," he whispered. I looked at my diploma framed on my shelf. "You already did," I said quietly. "You just didn't feel it until money made you." He started to cry. My father, the man who weaponized volume, crying like the world betrayed him. "How could you do this to us?" he choked out. And that was the final lie I refused to carry. "I didn't do this," I said. I stopped covering it. The community fallout was worse than the financial crash. Neighbors stopped waving. Old friends got busy. Family relatives who once praised Colton's ambition suddenly acted like they'd always seen him as trouble. Shame spread through my parents' social circle like a stain, and unlike money, shame doesn't refinance. Colton spiraled, not in a poetic, cinematic way, uglier. He posted online, begging for privacy and understanding. He blamed stress and jealousy. He implied he was a victim of misinterpretation. But the internet doesn't care about your excuses when screenshots exist. Companies backed away. Friends stopped answering. Even the people who benefited from his charm couldn't afford to be attached to him anymore. Then came the plea. Then came the sentence. Years, real years, not symbolic punishment. Years where time becomes the only thing you can't negotiate. He lost freedom. He lost the ability to reinvent himself quietly. He lost the golden boy myth permanently. My parents didn't just lose the house. They lost the story they used to survive. Without Colton's shine, they had to look at what they'd done. And that's when their punishment became something money couldn't fix. Isolation. Not the peaceful kind. Lonely, humiliating isolation where holidays are quiet and your phone stays silent, and you realize the child you abandoned was the only one with enough integrity to still stand tall. And me? I didn't feel joy the way people expect in revenge stories. I felt something steadier. Justice. I felt weight leave my shoulders. I felt my identity return to me. When you watch someone who was always prioritized collapse completely, do you feel satisfied? Or do you feel a strange emptiness because you realize you never wanted them destroyed? You just wanted them to stop using you? Be honest in the comments. Would truth be enough for you? Or would you go further? The first time I walked into my new office as an associate, I felt something I'd never been allowed to feel at home: uncomplicated pride. No one minimized it. No one redirected the conversation to Colton. No one acted like my success was nice, but not important. People shook my hand and meant it. People asked about my interests and listened to the answers. And for the first time, my life didn't feel like a supporting role in someone else's legacy. Weeks passed, and the scandal kept unfolding without me. My mother tried to send packages: old photos, childhood trophies, anything that could trigger guilt like a trap. My father sent one email that was 3 lines long. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix it." It wasn't a magical transformation. It wasn't redemption. It was the first time he admitted wrongdoing without trying to wrap it in excuses. And it only came after consequences removed his power. That's the part people don't like to say out loud. Some apologies aren't born from empathy. They're born from loss. Months later, I agreed to meet my parents in public. Not for reconciliation, but for closure. My father looked older, smaller, like arrogance had been drained out of him. My mother couldn't stop wringing her hands. "I watched your graduation video," she whispered. "Someone posted it. I saw you walk. I saw the empty seats." I didn't soften. "You didn't need a video," I said. "You needed values." My father stared into his coffee like it might give him a new reality. "I thought Colton was our legacy," he admitted. "And I wasn't?" I asked. He flinched. "You were, but you didn't need us." I leaned forward. "That's what you told yourself so you could abandon me without feeling like a villain." My mother's voice cracked. "Can you ever forgive us?" I let the silence stretch, because they needed to feel it. Then I said the truth they didn't want but needed. Forgiveness isn't a reset button. And I'm not offering you the old version of me. That version was trained to accept crumbs. My father swallowed hard. "What do you want from us?" I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for grand gestures. I asked for something harder. "Stop rewriting the story," I said. "Stop telling people you lost me because I'm ambitious. Tell the truth. You chose Colton over me until truth burned him down. If you ever want a relationship with me, it will be on my terms. Boundaries, honesty, and zero manipulation." They nodded because they didn't have leverage anymore. And for once, I didn't confuse compliance with love. I simply accepted the new reality. I could allow limited contact without surrendering my dignity. I still had nights where the memory hit me: the empty seats, the sneer in my father's voice, Colton on his knees begging me to lie. Healing doesn't erase the past. Healing teaches you how to live without letting the past drive the car. So I built something that didn't require their approval. Quietly, at first, I set up a small scholarship fund for women who felt invisible in their own families. Not because I wanted to be a hero, but because I wanted my pain to become something useful without making me someone else's sacrifice again. Every time I signed paperwork for it, I felt the old chain loosen. I didn't win by destroying them. I won by refusing to be their disguise. I won by choosing truth even when it cost me the fantasy of a normal family. And Colton? The last time I saw his name, it wasn't on a pitch deck or a visionary founder post. It was on a case update with a date, a plea, and a sentence that didn't care how charming he used to be. Ash doesn't brag. Ash only proves the fire was real. So here's my question for you. After something like this, would you forgive, or would you choose peace without them? And if this story hit a nerve, tell me what part felt the most real to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments because I read them. And your story might be the one that helps someone else finally stop shrinking to survive.